Like I said, we are going to finish up section 2.1. And we might even start section 2.2, depends on how we're going through this. We have very little left in the solving stuff. The solving stuff, especially the 2.1 part, we've seen them before. They come from almost the entirety of Algebra 2, like the entire of Algebra 2. But it's all things we've seen. We've even seen these times before, but it's been a hot minute since we did one with no numbers. So when it says solve for the specified variable, there we go, I'm good at words. All that means is when we get to the end and we decide that we're done, it should be this equals. So our goal on this one is to get an L equals. Whenever I'm handwriting my L's, I do usually do them as like a cursive lowercase l, simply so it doesn't look like a 1. That's not a math thing, it's just a my handwriting thing. Okay, so what do I need to do for this one to get an L equals? What we already did? If I multiply by v, I'm going to wind up with a v squared on top. So it's not quite what it's going to be, but a good instinct. Multiply by L on both sides. So if I multiply by L on this side and by L on this side, what that's going to do is that's going to get my L out of the denominator. Those are going to cancel out. So now I have either L times R or RL. Either way, it doesn't really matter. L times R equals V. That is a V. I know it looks like a U. Doesn't really matter. What do I need to do to get L by itself? Divide by R. So if I divide both sides by capital R, then these guys cancel out, and we're left with our L equals V over R. It doesn't look better, but it's what we were asked to do. That's our answer. Solve for the specified variable means get to L equals, or whatever our specified variable is. Okay? We start to see ones with no numbers, and then we panic. Briefly. So on the right one, it is hopefully a vaguely familiar formula. It's not something we need to know, but it is, in fact, a volume formula. And we're asked to solve for H. So we're aiming to get H equals. That's our goal. When it says, ooh, wrong pen. When it says solve for H, it means I want H equals as my answer. So what are we going to do to solve this for H? You can divide 1/3 on both sides. I heard that. That's fine. Dividing by 1/3, dividing by fractions is icky. What could we do instead? Multiply by 3. You're not wrong. It is the same thing as dividing by 1/3. It's just harder in your brain. If it works for your brain, absolutely fine. Totally fine. Multiply both sides by 3. That's going to make my 1/3 cancel out on the right-hand side. And we're going to have our 3v equals pi r squared h. Still aiming for an h equals. What do we need to do now? Divide by pi r squared. And we can do that all in one chunk. As long as I do it to both sides, I can do whatever the heck I want. Divide by pi r squared. Because that means this chunk and that chunk are going to cancel out, and we have on the right-hand side just our h. So our left-hand side's a mess. 3v over pi r squared. It's a mess, but that's exactly what we're asked for, is an h equals. So on these ones that have a whole bunch of letters, it might not look better when we're done. In fact, it might look a whole lot worse. But as long as we have the specified variable all by itself, we're there. Okay? I want to do one more that's kind of like the ones we did yesterday with our solving, simplifying, gargantuan mess. Like that. So I want us to do one more like this just so we can practice the solving. Because we didn't do a big one like this. I don't think. If ever I would put up the same problem we've already done, please let me know. I can't always keep track because I have 2 classes. So we're going to solve this. And this is our last one from section 2.1. So this will officially finish out section 2.1. And we have several ways we can approach this one. Lots of options. What can we do? Yeah. I see a denominator. We go, ew, denominators. So to get rid of all these, not the button I meant to push. There we go. To get rid of all our denominators, we can multiply by that least common denominator, which is also our least common multiple, which is going to be 3x minus 1. If I multiply by what's in the denominator, I'm going to straight up get rid of my denominators. So I'm going to write it all out long ways. Whoop. So I'm going to have my 9x over 3x minus 1 times 3x minus 1. There we go. Whoa, wrong pen. And that's going to equal 2 times our 3x minus 1 plus 3 over 3x minus 1 times our 3x minus 1. And on our 2 fractions, our denominators are going to cancel out. This guy and that guy cancel. And this guy and that guy cancel. They cancel out. So our left-hand side is just going to be 9x. Our right-hand side, we're going to do this multiplication with the 2 and my only remaining 3x minus 1. So we're going to have our 6x minus 2 plus 3. Looks a whole lot less gross when it's not a fraction. A whole lot less gross. What are we going to do now? Minus 6x from both sides, and we can at the same time combine those like terms. So I'm going to minus 6x from both sides to get my x's together. And at the same time, I notice, well, I've got a minus 2 and a plus 3 over here. So my left-hand side is going to be 3x. My right-hand side is going to be 1. Minus 2x and plus 3. 1. So what does my x equal? 1/3. 1/3. So if my x is 1/3, is this going to be a valid solution for this problem?
No.
Why not? Yeah, if I substitute in 1/3 for x, I'm going to wind up with a 0 in the denominator. You can't have zeros in the denominator. So this, does anyone remember what that's called? Extraneous. Oh my gosh, it's so extra. Oh my god. It is extraneous. So when we checked, it's a check fail, which means this is an extraneous solution, which if we either get no solution or an extraneous solution, there's no solutions. No solution is an option. There is no answer. If you get a statement that's false, like sometimes when we simplify, we'll get 2 equals 3, which is inherently a math lie. Like that is not a true statement. That is inherently false. So that would be another time that we'd have no solutions. It's not super common, but it can happen. So if you are solving and simplifying, and you get something like 7 equals 12, it's a no solution. Okay? So that is 2.1. Questions on anything in 2.1? Okay. 2.2 is going to be everybody's super duper most favoritist ever. Sarcasm. Because 2.2 is entirely and exclusively story problems.
What?
I know. Our mostest favorite ever. Right? Our mostest favorite. So we'll do one just to get started. Next week, when we do more of these, I'm going to print them out for you. So you're not going to have to write the entire paragraph. Okay? In fact, I already have them printed out, but I don't want to give you all the problems and just have us lose them and then we have to print them again. Okay? So we'll just do this one since we only have 6 minutes anyway. So we'll just do the one, and then next week I will pass out the paper that has every single word problem we're going to do in notes if we even get to them all. But it's solving. It's using the things we just did in solving just in situations. It's applied problems is what section 2.2 is. Yeah, and we're going to do these Monday and probably some on Tuesday too. So we've got here, on this first one, a student in algebra has test scores of 75, 82, 71, and 84. We want to know what score on the next test will raise the student's average to 80. First things first is we have to remember how we find an average. How do we find the average of a set of numbers? Add them all up, divide by how many there are, right? So what we have right now is we have the test scores of 75, 82, 71, and 84. So we could find their average right now by adding these together and dividing by 4. But we're not asked what their average right now is. I want to know what they would have to get on the next test. So what's the score for the next test?
80.
It's not that the test is 80. What score do they do they get on the next test? We don't know. So we're going to use a variable. X is totally fine. When we get to choose our own variables, I genuinely do not care which letter you choose. You can use X, you can use Y, you can use your initials, you can use a happy face, you can use a heart. It is literally a placeholder. I don't care. So we're adding another test in, which means how many are we going to divide by? 5. And we want to know when it equals 80. Right? So a lot of times the hard part on this is setting up the expressions. Because what do I do to solve this? Multiply both sides by 5. If I multiply the left side by 5, my fraction disappears and the right hand side. So boop, boop. So my right hand side, 80 times 5, that's a little faster, 400. And then we need to do all these additions. So add those up. 75 plus 82 plus 71 plus 84. Without a calculator.
What do we do?
Add up the test scores that we currently have. 312. Okay? Thus beginneth the challenge part of these story problems, since we don't have calculator. Okay? So, how do I get x by itself? Subtract it. So what do they need to get on the next test to get an average of 80 in the class? An 88. Okay? So a lot of times on this, the hard part is the doing it out with the calculator and the writing of the equation. Okay? We're going to practice more with these, but it's the same kind of vibe. It's story problems. Yes, dear?
What was that
Then skip it. If it doesn't have it on there, it means I had a problem with my fan and it got corrupted. And so I can fix it, but if it's not up there, don't worry about it. Is that 1-4 or is that 2-1? 2-1. Okay. Just so that I know so that I can fix it. But don't fret about it. Please bring your devices on Monday. We should be able to go through the IU registration. So bring something that you can do to check the email that you submitted for that. So also check your email. You should have an email from IU registration. You can always do it on your own, but I'm also going to kind of walk you through some pieces of it because it's weird. It's not intuitive always. So have a great weekend. 2.2 doesn't have a ton of problems on it because they are story problems.
What about 2.1?
2.1, I think it was very similar low level of problems. I just don't have it over here because honestly we only did those because we didn't quite get to them yesterday. Boop. I can put 2.1 up there. So if we need the 2.1 homework problems, that would be these ones. Putting it up. There's the 2.1 homework problems if you need those numbers still.
Thank you.
What? What?
So like I said, on Monday when we do story problems, I'll have them printed out for you guys so that we don't have to write the paragraphs as fast as we can.
Do you remember in 7th grade when Miss McMartin would make us glue papers onto our papers?
Yeah.
And she was like, I love the trees. Do you remember that?
I remember when I got one question wrong in 15. No, it was like 20
Bro,
question
she was
quiz, and I
literally
got a
dumb.
C.
Have a great rest of your day. Have a good weekend. Last weekend of the state fair if you're going to go.